You're listening to the Smart Nonprofit Masterclass. I'm Jose Gomez, founder and CEO of nonprofitwebsites.com and Net Ministry. If you're a leader or founder of a nonprofit who wants to reach more donors, volunteers, members, supporters, and the community that you're serving using the power of the internet, then I'm waiting for you in today's episode. So let's get growing. Hello, nonprofit leaders and founders. Welcome to our next episode. And today we're going to cover the topic of auditing your nonprofit website and how to improve results by doing so. In the quest to constantly improve the effectiveness of your nonprofit website, you're going to have to periodically audit the site. And each time you do, you'll be looking for areas of improvement based on specific goals that you have as an organization. So by using those goals, not the web standards or somebody's opinion on what the best practices are to evaluate your website, you're going to find the key ingredient to being a successful nonprofit and having a great website presence, web presence that contributes to that greatness. And I'm creating today's episode in response to just seeing so many nonprofit websites. In our time in business, we've been around since 2001, and we've worked with tens of thousands of nonprofits, and we've seen everything from the online business card to nonprofits that have fully integrated their web presence into what they do. And we've seen what works and what doesn't work. We've seen what really gets them the response and the reaction and the results that they're looking for, and what doesn't, what just kind of sits there, and in a few years either they shut the website off or they have to reformulate what they're doing. So today what I want to do is I want to give you a very specific process for evaluating your web presence. Now, this is of course for organizations that already have a website. So if you don't have a website, still keep on listening through here, because it's going to give you a little bit of an insight as to what it's going to take over time to improve your web presence. In the beginning, when you first design your website, it's the first stab at it. You're putting up what you think is going to work, and then over time, hopefully you get smarter about what you're doing. If you have a nonprofit that's had a website for many years, there are still ways that you can improve what you're doing and do it continually. So let's talk about that process. The first part in this process is to list specific goals. So this is really just taking out a sheet of paper and writing down the list of goals that you have for your nonprofit and its web presence. So the first step in the auditing process is list specific goals that you want to accomplish through your website. The goals you're looking for are ones that can be counted numerically. For example, a goal could be the number of new email subscribers you've added to the list each month, or the quantity of online donations you've received. Each goal has to be written down for evaluation and testing against the data that your website provides you with. So you want to make sure that you're looking at real information. You're not making guesses. You're not saying, well, I think my website's contributing to these things. You want exact numbers. How many donations came through your website? How many volunteers signed up? How many subscribers were added to your list? And you can come up with a number of different goals. So write them down. This is a really critical piece, because if you don't write it down, if you don't look at it, if you don't watch it, it's not going to grow. I mean, that's a general rule of thumb. The numbers we watch are the numbers that grow. The next step that you're going to take in this is to determine the best way to measure those goals. So next, we're going to look at every way that those goals can be measured and reported. We call those traps. Do you have mechanisms in place to capture the information you need? Are there reports available to help you quickly audit these metrics? Every goal has to be measurable so that you can conduct experiments that will increase them. And this is the concept behind what's known as growth hacking. You're creating these experiments. So a good example of that is, you can't have an increase in email subscribers if you don't have an email sign-up form on your website. You can't measure online donations if there's no way to take donations online. So you want to take each of the goals that you have and look through your website and try to figure out, how am I capturing this metric? How am I capturing this information? And what tools do I have for reporting on those metrics? How can I tell whether these actions are being conducted? The next step in this process is to follow the process backwards. So now, from the end goal, follow the process backwards to the beginning of a visitor's session. For example, for a donor to give on the website, there needs to be a form to process the donation. That form should be on a page with convincing donor appeal messages. To get to that page, they have to be led there by buttons, emails, social media links, and more. At every step of the way backwards, you want to look at each of these systems and ensure that they're the best, easiest, and quickest route to the next step. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it has to all be one click away, but we are talking about the ease and the clarity in your process. So to get a donation, I have to have a way for people to donate. That way needs to be accessible on the website. And in order for people to access that particular how, there have to be signals, there have to be roads to there. So there have to be emails going out or text messages going out or social media posts about it. There needs to be clear buttons and directions on the website. And then two, take a look at what kind of convincing copy is there on the site that leads them to perform this action that you want them to perform, right? So if it's a donation that you want to get, and what's your appeal message look like? What videos do you have? What testimonials have you put up to reinforce not just the need for the donation, but what this donation will do? Same thing for an email. We don't care. People don't care that we need more email subscribers. They want to know what they get out of it. So are we clearly illustrating that? And that could be through written information. It could be through videos, whatever you can do to make that more convincing and risk-free, people will take action. So process that or follow that process backwards and make improvements along the way. And then to understand what individual components are more effective than others, it's important to treat the process like an experiment. You want to only change one piece of the process at a time and then wait. The idea is gradual, sustainable growth and progress. Sometimes you might find the entire process is broken, right? In those cases, you want to quickly redesign. You want to follow the process backwards again, ensure that the emphasis is always on the result, not solely on the beginning presentation. If you want to be more aggressive about it, you can create different versions and test them against one another. That's called A/B testing or split testing. But the idea is you want to make controlled changes to the process to see if things change, especially if you're already getting results, guys. If you're already getting results, the last thing you want to do is completely change it up and then things change either for the better or for the worse and you don't know why, right? You want to try to understand why things are working, why things are not working. And the only way to do that is to just move the needle one thing at a time. Change some of the ad copy, change headlines, change the video, maybe change the links that are going there, maybe add buttons around the site to try to get people there, maybe record a video when maybe you don't have one. So those are all things that you can do. Just test one thing at a time to gradually improve the site. And the goal is that this is kind of a long-term thing. You're going to do this every month. I mean, for some of you, maybe even every week. If you have a lot of traffic coming through, if you're paying for advertising campaigns, you're going to want to do it faster. You're going to want to measure and iterate, create those multiple versions, do split testing. There's a lot of work that you can do to improve things. But the main focus here, what I really want you to go away with here, yes, there's a process. Yes, there's technology. Yeah, there's standards. But I really want you to walk away with this idea that the end result, the results are what you want, the goal that you want to attain is the main focus here. A lot of times you'll talk with web designers or marketing people and brand people, and they'll kind of give you entry points. They give you advice on the initial marketing, on the design of things, on how things need to look, instead of first looking at the end goal and making sure there's a way to capture those goals, that there's traps set to capture those goals. Because if you don't have the traps in place, if you don't have great juicy things that people can do and in the best cases can do in exchange for something of value, then all the marketing in the world is not going to help you. It'll be this kind of ambiguous, this amorphous, getting attention thing that you won't really be able to measure other than website traffic. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of websites that have shut down that have had amazing traffic to it. We know websites that have gotten millions of hits and just shut down because at the end of the day, there was nothing in place to take advantage of all that traffic. The worst thing that you want is to have all kinds of traffic come into your website and no one does anything. There's no results out of it. So always start with, again, end goal, work your way backwards to the traps, then move on to, okay, what am I doing to get those traps to go off, get people to do the things I need them to do, and how am I leading them there? What am I saying to convince them? Once you have all those things in place, then marketing starts making sense. Then SEO makes sense and running paid ads makes sense because now you're driving people into a process, not just information. And that's really key, guys. You want to drive your website traffic, drive people that you're bringing to your website from your marketing into a process, into a system, into a lane, not just information, not just an event, but into a registration process. And you have to look at that process from end to beginning and then beginning to end, put yourself through it so that you understand what you're putting visitors through and make iterations, changes to make it easier, make it quicker, make it the least risk possible for the person who is genuinely interested in being a part of what you're doing. All right, final thoughts here, something that you could do. The reason you have a website as a nonprofit is to produce results, such as increased donations, supporters, volunteers, and people to serve. Periodically plan to audit your entire web presence, including your outposts like your social media and your inbound links. Follow the process you have set up and improve them over time. Do this at least once a month to see dramatic increases in everything you do. And again, if you're paying for advertising and if you have a lot of traffic to your website, you'll want to do it even more frequently than that, maybe even once a week. The bonus action I want to give you is to write down one goal and follow the process backwards to audit your website for that goal, for that one goal. Think about each step and what you can do to improve the probability that the end goal will be the result of the visitor's action. Make one improvement to the process and ensure that there's a way to measure that increase in a reliable way. And hopefully this is something you can take action on right away, guys. If you have a website, just sit down and ask yourself, what am I trying to get from this? And for many nonprofit leaders that I talk to, they've never really thought about that. They just put up a website because it's something you have to do, and they did it along with, again, doing their business cards and their logo, and they just never went back to think about what's the end goal here. And then they're frustrated because they have their website up for a year and nobody's given. We hear that a lot. I've had my website up for 2-3 years. We've never had one donation through the website. And when I look at the website, there's no hope to get a donation through that website. There's no clear goal. There's no clear path to that donation. There's just a give button or a donate button at the top, and they expect people to click on that. And many times when you click on it, there's just 3 ways to give, and there's no appeal, there's no real, again, logical path. So anything that makes me feel good towards giving. The only people that are going to give are people that are already giving that you send to the website. In order to change that, you've got to create a path. You have to think again of getting people into a process, into a system. To get them to do what you want them to do at the end. And remember, listen, when we're face to face having a lunch with a prospective donor or major donor, or it could be somebody we're trying to get into, trying to make a pledge, or we're just trying to get a volunteer to help us with something, we sit down with them face to face and we have to convince them. Imagine how much you have to convince somebody who's not there face to face with you. Your website is your representative at that moment, or the surrogate you, and it needs to be able to convince people in the same way you would over coffee with somebody who's there live with you. I hope this podcast has been helpful, and if you have any questions, definitely let us know. Visit our website, nonprofitwebsites.com, and if you're a church or ministry, jump over to netministry.com. We have wonderful services that can help you not only to put a website together, but also to manage this entire process and do it for you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Smart Nonprofit Masterclass. I hope that it challenged you in some way and provided you with the tools to effectively communicate your nonprofit's initiatives to the communities you serve. Now, I'd love to get more involved with your nonprofit and help you to increase donors, supporters, and community presence. My team's been doing it for over 2 decades. In fact, we're usually the team nonprofits call on when all the other agencies, service providers, and volunteers fail to provide the results that they're looking for. Sadly, it's usually after they spend way too much money figuring that out. Don't wait that long. We're looking for more nonprofits just like yours to serve and help grow. But we'll never have the chance to do that unless you reach out. So I'd like to point you to a free webinar that doesn't require any sort of email sign up. If you feel that we can help you after watching it, then book a call with me directly and we'll go over the ways we can best help you. Go now to nonprofitwebsites.com/apply, and I'll see you on the other side. Have a great day.